Here we go again.
Oh, no, not again.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Dom, how long have we been doing this?
Once more unto the breach, dear friends.
Again and again and again until we're both dead.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews, connections of mind. The New Mutants has finally dropped into theaters after a long gestation, first with Fox Studios and now with the acquisition of Fox by Disney. It is now being dropped through a contractual obligation on Disney's part, and it is directed by Josh Boone and stars, among others, Anya-Taylor Joy and Maisie Williams. And this film focuses on the exploits of a handful of teenage mutants who are just coming to terms with their mutant powers in a hospital that they are not allowed to leave, but they are under the tutelage of a doctor who who she claims that she wants to help them to develop their powers safely so that they are no longer a threat to themselves or others. However, these teenage mutants realize that there is more to this doctor and this hospital than meets the eye, of course, and it is with the introduction of a new patient that they decide to act upon it. And when the strange things start happening and events take a dark turn, it's up to these new mutants to lead the way and face this danger as a united front. Now, this video review will contain spoilers of the New Mutants, as well as certain other films and TV shows. I'll be doing my spoiler-free thoughts of this film before I get into any spoiler talk, but just so you know, there will be some spoiler talk later on in this video, so once I start getting, there'll be another spoiler warning, so if you have not seen New Mutants yet and want to wait until you have, once I get into spoilers at that point, feel free to stop the video at that point and come back later once you have. But with that being said, without further ado, let's get into some spoiler-free thoughts on the New Mutants. What did I think of the film? Was it worth it? In these times, is it worth seeing in the theater? I would say this film, when I came out of it, one of the reasons I wanted to see this film, it's considered the last film in the Fox universe of the Marvel films. It is the last Fox film of the X-Men universe that they've established through the original X-Men in 2000, all the way through X-Men Apocalypse, Logan, Deadpool, Dark Phoenix was thought to be the last X-Men film, but there was one last one in the tank. This was originally scheduled to be released in April of 2018, and it was delayed several times. It was supposed to come out late in 2018, early 2019, late 2019, early 2020, and now here we are in August of 2020, and it finally drops. And now that we come to see it, we've waited all this time. This film, it's really not that remarkable as far as the films go in the Fox X-Men universe. Now, that's to say that this is not a bad film by any means. This is more of a character piece rather than an action-oriented, superpowered individual movie. There certainly is parts of that. The main cast of characters, I'm not all that familiar with the expanded X-Men cast of characters besides the core few, of course, Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, whatever. But the main ones I do know, the one that I did know going to this was Ilyana Romanov, aka Magic, played by Anya-Taylor Joy in this film. She does a great job in this movie. Her story, I feel like, was probably the most compelling of the group of five characters in the main group of five mutants in this film. And what I think worked about her is just that her story is in the film itself, she's portrayed as, at least her outward persona is kind of a jerk. I will soften the language that I'm sure that they use in the film, but yeah, she's comes off as a jerk, but she has a fairly traumatic past that she hides behind. She has a little hand puppet of like a purple pterodactyl thing, and she like personifies it and uses it as a character to speak to in order to process her dark past, and she's afraid to face that which she fears, that she's feared since childhood. I think that's a powerful storyline to go to. Also, Maisie Williams' character also does a fairly good job in this film. I think her character also is one where she is portrayed as I believe her character's name is Rain, and she is portrayed as a devout, I'm assuming Catholic, and the fact that she clings to her faith despite what has happened to her in her past, a traumatic past involving a father slash father figure that was kind of hard to tell. Maybe someone who knew the comics knows that, or maybe it was said that before. But regardless, a priest who scarred her. And as she clings to the faith, despite the fact, in spite of her trauma and her dealing with her mutant powers and things that are happening to her in this hospital. Again, a very compelling story. This is a very character-centric piece. There is some action to be done, and the action that does happen is quite well done in my estimation. Really, most of the action happens in the last 20-ish minutes of the film. But overall, as far as the story goes, this film really, if I was to sum it up in as few words as possible, it's just my estimation, my summation would be just characters talk, things happen, then the end. That can describe any film, but if you generalize it enough. But this film in particular, there really isn't much beyond that. That there's a hospital, there's these mutants that are trying to cope with their powers. Things are happening. They try to find stuff out, and then the movie just kind of ends when they figure stuff out. That's about it. And as far as a compelling story goes, I don't think that really covers much. But yeah, this movie is fun just to see Anya-Taylor-Joy and Maisie Williams' performances. But really the main, the audience surrogate character, Danny, we're supposed to dive more into her storyline and her backstory, and we kind of do, but at a certain point we just kind of stop, and then we just all right, this is happening, and they fight a thing, and when they defeat it, that's about it. And then the movie ends. This whole movie like I said, things happen and then it ends is about as much of a summation as I can give it. That this isn't really an action-centric thing. The characters about it, and even for a character-centric storyline, the other characters, the two boy characters, one was played by the actor whose name escapes me, but he played the elder Byers kid in Stranger Things. He did a good job. They opened the door to some interesting things that they could have gone with it, but they don't really go too far beyond that, and he doesn't really do a whole lot, even in the action scenes. The other guy, they do so shallow a job with explaining why he's there and how he got to what he is, and then it really bears no bearing on the story as a whole. That it's just okay, these characters are a thing, and he doesn't really know what to do with them, and I think that's a shame, because I think in a proper writing job, this could have done. They could have done a good job of it. I think this movie was supposed to be billed as a more of a horror element to it, and there's certainly elements of that. There's some potentially scary imagery here, but other than that, it doesn't really go anywhere, and that's sort of a shame. Even the big enemy that they go to, pretty scary, but then they linger on it so long, and then it's just like it goes out so easily. It really doesn't do much. Yeah, this movie is fine for character performances. It's fun to see these people interact with each other, but other than that, movie just is kind of there, and then just kind of flitters away, and there's just nothing really of consequence happened. And in that regard, I would say this film, The New Mutants, if I were to give it a letter grade, I would say this is a solid C. It doesn't do anything atrocious with its material. It doesn't lift it to anything great. It's just kind of there. It does its job, and then I would forget about it after a month or so, and that's about it. So, and I don't really in this climate of coronavirus, I don't recommend seeing this in theaters. It's really not worth it. I saw it, so you don't necessarily have to do that. So wait for it to come out on VOD at that point. So there you have it. Those are my spoiler-free thoughts on New Mutants. Now let's get into some spoiler analysis of this film as to certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. First, let's just get out of the way the fact that this film was originally supposed to be released in April of 2018, and there are a couple references in here that I feel like were more relevant when it was originally scheduled to come out, and now you'd have to go back through your archive to figure out why they put emphasis on them. One is the fact that this whole hospital is being run by the Essex Corporation, which was teased at the end of X-Men Apocalypse. That was supposed to be the big thing. There was probably going to be building off of that, but of course that's never going to happen now. And of course the fact that Essex Corporation, through a vision that Danny has, she sees a hospital or a psych ward of a facility where young mutants are being trained in combat for presumably the Weapon X program, where SS Corporation is training these young mutants to be weapons. Considering that there was a very similar scene, footage of this in Logan, I feel like there's a very strong possibility that this was supposed to tie in with Logan in that regard, especially since that film also featured a bunch of young mutants in that. And plus, the fact that this film also has a somewhat of a retro-futuristic vibe where it's kind of hard to tell when this film is supposed to take place. That could fit more into Logan, as well as considering Logan is supposed to take place in the future. That I feel like there's something to be said about that. That's just something to note about this film going forward. That there was some. This was obviously meant to be a film that was supposed to build to something else in the franchise, but obviously now that Disney's running the show, and that was the old Fox thing, and their timeline was definitely on a downward slope. That's more than likely not going to happen at this point. So there's that to consider. Also, the fact that this film focuses on has a beginning and end narration by the main character about a Native American legend about the two bears, about one embodies all things good and one embodies all things evil, and it all focuses on they grow by which ones you feed. It's like, which one are you going to feed, the good one or the bad one? That reminds me very much about Tomorrowland, where the main character also has a beginning and ending narration speech about, or at least in that case, it was feeding the right wolf, which, again, different animal, but I'm pretty sure the same legend that they were referencing. It's a minor thing, but it's definitely a notable thing to notice. It's something I noticed in that point. Also, the fact that this film focuses entirely on the superpowered individuals being cared upon by a doctor who is trying to help them or hurt them with their powers in a sketchy looking hospital. There's certainly a similarity to be drawn with Glass. the M. Night Shyamalan film, with those characters being in the mental hospital or focusing on their abilities. Again, they diverge at a certain point with that film focused on convincing them that they weren't superheroes. This one focused on how to control their powers, but you can see there's a definite similarity there as well. Also, the fact that the one guy who, again, I don't remember their names, his guy's name, because he's just kind of there. The guy who burned his girlfriend, and he has to prevent himself from not getting too hot and bursting into flames and unleashing his true power. That just smacked me so much of Diablo from Suicide Squad. Very similar backstory there, where he also got too hot and burned to death his girlfriend and child. So there's that going for them. Also, the fact that Danny, the main character, she conjures up these mental images through unconsciously and conjures up their deepest, darkest fears. There's a certain similarity here with Michael Crichton's Fear, first the novel, both the novel and the film adaptation of it, where especially when a character is unconscious, they are able to conjure up a monster. In Sphere's case, it was a giant squid as a main antagonist, and in this movie's case, it was a giant demon bear. So there's that to go on. Also, the fact that this film has a character that preys upon their deepest, darkest fears, or gives all the other characters visions of their dark fears. There's a comparison to be made there with Scarlet Witch, and more specifically, Scarlet Witch in Avengers Age of Ultron. So there's another point of comparison. I'm sure there are others out there, but those are just the main points of comparison that I made here. But overall, I think this movie, as far as this movie goes, those are I was hoping for a little bit more humor in this movie. There were a couple things, especially when at the very end when they're just kind of sitting in the rubble and you have the sequence where Danny picks up a picture. Someone else picks up another artifact, and then the one guy picks up the severed foot of the Doctor. It's like, ew, it's like, that was kind of a funny moment, but yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot to laugh at in this film, and it was just kind of a downer overall, and that was just kind of a bummer as far as that goes. So, like I said, this movie is a solid C. Didn't do anything atrocious, but it didn't really elevate anything either. It just did its job, and it gave us a X-Men movie, and then just kind of left. So those are my main thoughts on the New Mutants. What did you think of New Mutants if you've seen it in the theater, seen it already? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did I miss anything? I probably missed something. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Be sure to look for my next movie review, which will be for Tenet. I have a early access screening of that on August 31st, so be sure to look for that in the days after that. As well as other videos coming through now that we are hopefully, if all proceeds well, we're going to start getting some new movies coming out in September and October. I really hope to get some reviews out to you guys soon. Yeah, and again, if you're going to see this in the movie, please, in the movie theaters, please do it safely. I wore my mask the whole time, and I don't really like wearing a mask for an extended period of time. So if I could do it, you guys can do it too. Again, if you're going to go out there, please be safe. Thank you so much for watching once again. You guys are the best. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.